back for another video. My name is Josh Katzek, and today is my Daphne in the Brilliant Blue review. Now, this is an interesting anime because it kind of takes place years in the future from where we are right now, because hundreds of years before the show takes place, for some reason the land and cities get destroyed or put underwater. But it wasn't the end of humanity. See, humanity survived by having dome cities under the water. Now, hundreds years ago, before the show takes place, these cities rose to the surface, and the domes collapsed, and they basically became floating cities. And then we have 100 years where the show takes place. Now, one of these cities did not rise to the surface, and hundreds of people died that live there is in Alpida, and is very important to the plot, but I'll get more into that as the story goes, okay? Now, the main character is Maia Mizuki, and yes, not Daphne. Daphne, and there's a reason behind the name of the show, which I will get into later, alright? So, Maia is working, or is tending this academy, and she kind of lives alone, because she used to live with her grandfather, but it's kind of implied that he died before the events of the show. But yeah, so she tends to school to join the water agency. Now this world right now has different agencies, with the water agency being on the top, and they just do like missions or just things for people that the police don't want to do, and they get money for it. And the water agency, I think, is more of the military of kind of the world currently, is kind of the feel behind it, and so that's kind of what that. But Maya's at the top of her class, so she should be a shoo-in for the water agency. But her friend Tsukasa, on the other hand, isn't the top of her class. But with the help of Maya, she is actually able to get through. But unfortunately, Maya doesn't, and which we find out later why in the story. Now, she also kind of sold off her house that her grandfather had, because she assumed that she'd be living in the dorms with the water agency and everything. And unfortunately, the way the society and the system works, she can't get that place back, and she's going to be evicted. Well, she didn't have enough money she didn't have a job, she didn't have enough money to buy her own place right now. I mean, she has some money to buy her own place, but not enough to buy a place in the area she was living in. That's like kind of a very expensive place. The people told her to go to the other part of the city that they live in, where she tried to find a job there and get like a house, but nothing really works out, and she's really in a bad situation. And it gets to a point where now she gets captured by this bad guy with a knife, and these two girls wearing very, very, and I mean very skimpy outfits. I mean, it's probably the worst part of the show, because they're practically wearing nothing, and when they're in combat. This is their combat outfits, but Rena, the red-haired girl or whatever, she shoots because she's kind of like, she doesn't really care. Like, I mean, she cares, but like, she has this personality to her that, so she didn't care that she shoots Maya to get at the bad guy, but not like killing her. She used a stun bullet that has like a huge electric field type thing, so that it will be able to stun the bad guy as well. And then Maya just wakes up in this place that she has no understanding of, and she gets greeted by Hanaoka. That's his last name. I can't remember his first name offhand, but he is the branch manager of Nereids, or this branch of Nereids, another agency. But he's supposed to be the leader. Rena is really the leader, because he has a very timid personality, and Rena just kind of bosses him around and kind of bosses everyone else. But she's technically right under the branch manager anyway, so she just takes charge, really. So and then you have Shizuka. She is very different than Rena. She's kind of, I would say, a little bit of a her personality, what I would describe it, a little bit of an airhead, but Maya's more of the airhead than she is, but she's kind of there. But she's really good with mechanics, and she's really well known throughout the city. So, which is really interesting when it comes on to help with the missions. But for Maia, they kind of use her in their kind of mission they're currently on right now, where they disguise disguise her as the guy they just captured, because that guy's brother has the $2 million that they stole, and they want to get that $2 million as well as capture that dude. So they pretend that Maia is the guy, dressing them like the guy, and they do a change. But then Maia points a gun at the dude once they do the exchange. But she's not really good with a gun, which is really confusing to me, because she was trying to get in the water agency, and the guy tricked her and said her safety was on, and she looked at the gun and got knocked out and captured. And they had to do an exchange again between the actual brother and Maia, but then the brother took out his handcuffs and grabs Maia, but then something happens and they get knocked into the water. Their hover car, yes, all vehicles are hovers in this time period, but they could also go in the water, and Rena and Shizuka chase after them in kind of like water bikes, but and then there was a chase, but then the brothers weren't paying attention and they hit a pillar, and they're going down, and the pressure's getting higher and higher, and Rena and Shizuka couldn't follow them. Well, Maia has a 5 class license, meaning she can pretty much drive anything, and so she took over the ship and flew it up, and then the brothers are captured. The next day, I think, or next time, Rena offers Maia a job and a place to stay. Now, originally she refused because she thinks they're crazy, but she does end up joining them and trains for combat, and even gets her own skimpy outfit or whatever. Now, normally in their non-combat, they don't have skimpy outfits, although Rena's outfit is still technically skimpy, but like not as much as her combat outfit. And then eventually we get to introduce two more girls. Gloria. She is an excellent marksmith. She can pretty much shoot anything with accuracy from a far distance, even though apparently she has no good eyesight, so is she just predicting where they would go? Like, they never really explain that, but all she cares about is money, money, money. No matter what, just money. It's like you could throw a coin at a coin and she would try to fetch it like a dog, okay? Like, she just loves money. And then you got Yu. She is a brute, silent type, and she's a combat, so she's like physical punch type thing, you know? But that's kind of all. Those are all the girls of Nereids. And essentially, like I said, they go on missions and stuff like that to gain money in order to survive and everything like that. But those brothers do come back here and there as well, with another brother and then a sister, in which the Nereids actually stole the submarine they had because they were actually treasure hunters, and the sister wants to get they want to get the treasure that's supposed to be in Alpida. So that's why they had the submarine, which is kind of played for they're kind of for the comedy, part of the comedy and stuff like that. Now, particular mission, they go to Siberia City. Now, Siberia City, yes, it's a place where people actually want to go, which right now no one wants to go to Siberia, and there's no thing called a Siberia City. That's just made up for the show. But Siberia is supposed to be a really bad place that no one wants to go. So it's really interesting. It's a reverse here. It's like a city now, and everyone wants to go there. Oops. But yeah. So let's get to the main point. So they complete their mission, but it turns out that Maia starts to remember places in Siberia City and this tree, even though she's never been there. And it's revealed that she actually has amnesia. She has no memory of her past because, the doctors at the water agency who was helping her, turns out that she was actually in an accident in a hover car accident with her parents, and her parents didn't survive, but she did, but lost all her memories. And then her grandfather, only living family member, takes her in so that they can raise her and try to get her memories back. And it's also revealed in a flashback that her grandfather died, I think, from a heart attack. It didn't say that's a heart attack, but based on how it looks, you assume it was a heart attack. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's going there. So she stays there, try to find more information, but she didn't. They go back. But in a later point, they have to deal with the brothers and the sister with, they stole the submarine. And the submarine also has like a smaller, sub thing that can go out. Well, as events kind of play out in this episode, Maya accidentally gets trapped in this smaller sub at the bottom of the water, and oxygen and all that stuff was running out. And so she was able to get back some of her memories of having a brother, which the water agency and her grandfather never told her of. But yeah, she remembered being a little girl with a brother. But then she goes back to, they go there. She's trying to figure out where this brother came back. She even went back to a water agency, and they had no records of this brother of hers. But then she got back somewhat more of her memories and remembered this tree where they put a time capsule in it. So she asked Rena to go back to Siberia City, where she found this tree there that looks similar to her dream, but it turns out the capsule wasn't there. And she goes back very depressed, not doing her job, and it gets so bad to the point where on a mission she's supposed to be on the lookout for bad guys as the other girls go rescue girls that are being used or sent through sex trafficking. And she then spots this dude that's kind of been following her this entire time throughout the show that she starts to think is her brother. But it turns out this is not the dude that's been following her, just looked like the dude that's been following her from the back. And this allows the bad guys to come and kind of mock things up. And Maya was about to be shot by one of these bad guys, but then Shizuka saves her, but she gets shot. And Rena's just so mad that because Maya's all she's caring about is her past, and so she lets Maya go. And then she didn't have any, yet again, no job, not a lot of money, so she stays at a really bad hotel. It turns out these bad guys from earlier are staying at, and the police show up, and they're going to capture everyone because they don't know what's accomplished, but Maya was able to escape, and the bad guys seem to escape too, and they spot her and remembered her, and so she starts running, but they do capture her, and they put a knife to her. They're going to do bad things to her, but then her friend, a friend shows, not her friend from the 8th County, another friend shows up and hits these bad guys and get them away, and turns out to be a girl named Millie. Now, in an earlier episode, Millie is actually friends with Shizuka, and she's actually a racer. And she was, in this particular episode, after many racers were hurt in a sabotage of this new vehicle they were testing for the race, she takes over, but then she also gets hurt in her arm. And so since Maya has a 5-class license, she takes over, and it turns out the person who's been sabotaging this is actually the person who created this, because he feels like he's been mistreated at the workplace and was going to join the another company that's a rival to this company that they're working on. So Millie and her became friends. Well, it turns out that Millie has this locket that has a picture of her grandmother Ai, who she is, and this comes into point part because after saving Maya, she gets knocked, she kind of goes unconscious or lands on Millie, and that's when she starts to remember. She kind of got back most of her memories at this point, and they go back, the agent that, or the person that's been following them, go back to Millie's place, and Maya wakes up and remembers that she used to live on PETA, and that before the cities rose from before they rose, which makes no sense, right? But Troy is that agent that's been following her, and he's been assigned to follow her from the water agency, and he is actually tells her that she is the only survivor of Alpida, and it turns she was found in a hypergenic pod that freezes her body so she doesn't age within 100 years. And the reason why that is because her father, on the other hand, worked with making animals in hypergenic state to freeze them until the cities rose again, and so then they could release these animals. And so they've been in slumber for years, okay? So that's kind of how it is, but then he's also part of the group that's trying to get these cities to rise, and a lot of people hate them, or dislike them, and so they hired a bodyguard, and so she even knew Millie's grandmother, and they become really good friends. But at a certain point, obviously, I kind of leaves Alpida, and obviously has children, and those children have Millie, something like that. So yeah, so she gets back most of her memories, and it turns out the part of the water agency is trying to erase, is trying to actually erase her Maia's memories, because they don't want. Well, first, it's a way to kind of protect her from other people, but as well as to protect themselves, because of a decision that they all made when the water agency was in its primer state. But unfortunately, Troy leaves to go try to find a way to save Maia after getting her own memories, but then a special force from the water agency hits Millie and captures Maia, and they are going to try to erase her memories again. But then Shizuka shows up from the hospital and finds out that Maia's fired. And then Tsukasa, her friend from the academy, shows up as well. And Shizuka quits, and they go with Tsukasa to rescue Maia. And it turns out these two doctors are part of it, are part of this secret plan to erase her memories, and it's all this stuff going on. But then they do rescue Maia, but are surrounded by the water agency. But then Gloria and Yu, being upset at Rena for being a problematic, go rescue them, as well as Millie shows up. She was really hit on the head, and they all go and try to escape. Maia goes with Millie, the other girls go in their own hover car, but it turns out that Maia with Millie is actually Tsukasa wearing a disguise that looks like Maia, and actually wearing her normal outfit, while Maia's actually in a compartment in the hover car wearing her combat outfit. But they actually tricked the agency to go follow the Millie, but then they were actually able to catch up with the other hover car where Maia's actually in. But then Rena shows up in the submarine, and they go into the water, and they decide to go to Alpida because she just wanted to get all her memories. But then the water agency follows them in a submarine, but then the brothers and sisters show up in another submarine given to them by that agent Troy, and they actually got the water agency to go, but the submarine that the girls were using kind of got attacked and was damaged. So Maia goes into the smaller sub and goes into Alpida, which actually from a visual has a big hole in the top. Like, this wasn't just something attacked it or something made it actually sink. And so they go in, she goes in and finally gets all her memories. See, Alpida years ago had this virus that broke out. Instead of the water agency as primitive saving everyone, they decided, and pretty much the cities and all of them agreed to sacrifice the city, and so killing hundreds of people. And her father, though, and this goes on the intercom, so the water agency somehow is listening on this as well. They decided to her parents, working with hypergenics, puts her brother and her into these hypergenic tubes and launched them up, and so that's how they lived. And but everyone else died. So, and then she gets her capsule, and from where the tree should be, because that's where they lived in Alpida, and finds the capsule. And it used to be a DVD, and they put it into she downloads into the pod and gives it to the submarine, and it's revealed a birthday video for Maia, and that kind of we saw in the backflash. And there she saw her brother had this symbol that her grandfather had. It turns out that the grandfather is actually her brother, and he was just found 60 years later, or earlier, and was waiting 60 years for his sister to come back. And then it kind of is a happy ending where Maia originally thought she was going to go join the water agency. She actually joins she actually stays with Nereids, much to her friends' kind of dismay, but she understands. And the water agency and the government kind of revealed to everyone what was going on, the truth. And so now there can't be any more corruption in the water agency, at least from that anyway. And so yeah, so a happy ending. Well, guys, that's pretty much, like I said, pretty much everything. I do recommend this story. Like, I understand with the girls wearing very skimpy outfits, it's kind of problematic. I think it's somewhat wrong to have girls having that just but I think the story is good enough to that I do recommend that at least. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you're new, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified from the next upload. My YouTube channel, website link, my Twitter, my Snapchat, and Instagram are all in the description as always. And thank you. Goodbye.